Earlier, I spoke with our Major Garrett, who was in the building for Trump's speech, and we discussed Trump's plan as well as his criticisms of President Obama and Hillary Clinton.
Trump criticized at one point late in the speech President Obama for going on an apology tour. This is a long-standing grievance of conservatives who believe President Obama early in his administration apologized for all sorts of perceived wrongs perpetrated by the United States of America. At one point calling, Trump said the president did, President Obama, a colonial power. And then to pick up on the point you were just discussing, how does America keep the oil in Iraq unless it is acting as a colonial power? Because by definition, if you take over a country, hold on to all of its material natural resources for your own benefit, you are acting like a colonial exploitive power. So there's an enormous contradiction there. I'll get to some of the other substantive points that Trump made in the speech about countering terrorism, but there are two things that he asserted as fact that are not factually true. He did not oppose the Iraq War before it started. He was at best benign on whether or not the United States should go into Iraq, and he didn't become a full-blown skeptic until 5 months after the invasion. Trump always likes to tell his audiences, hey, I was completely against the Iraq War, Hillary Clinton was for it, therefore you should trust me. He wasn't. That is simply not true. So that's one aspect of this. And then he criticized President Obama and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton for what he called a precipitous and reckless withdrawal of U.S. forces, saying there never should have been a date certain and it never should have been adhered to. Who negotiated that withdrawal date? President George W. Bush. Who carried it out? Yes, President Obama, but he was under a status of forces agreement that President Bush negotiated and put into place, not President Obama. So Trump likes to blur or completely obscure those essential historical facts when he talks about the rise of ISIS. Now, he also said the current administration, in its posture countering terrorism, ISIS and other kinds, is just waiting around for the next attack, suggesting that there isn't any active counterintelligence methods going on now, that we aren't listening in, obtaining battlefield intelligence, doing things to gain a foothold against ISIS or al-Qaeda or other terrorist networks. And I guarantee you, those in the counterintelligence community would dispute that vigorously. So would the American military. So would those part of the air campaign in Iraq and Syria. And so would the Iraqi military, which has retaken Fallujah and other key sectors of Iraq away from ISIS. And in the process, special operators from the United States side who've accompanied them have also gathered a tremendous amount of intelligence. So on that front, there was just a lot of things that Trump asserts that don't really hold up to any kind of intense scrutiny. One thing that Trump did offer more substantive detail on is how he regards this idea of immigration. A Muslim ban is now a geographic or terrorism-specific ban, and he wants an ideological test. He wants people to answer questions about their relationship intellectually and ideologically to core American values. And if you don't support American values, if you think Sharia law ought to replace American law, then you can't get in. You'll just be denied access. And Trump also suggested that there would be aggressive efforts to find those in the country now on any kind of visa or immigration privilege that don't support America or are inclined toward jihadist activities or ideologies, and they somehow would be moved out of this country, or at least found and questioned and then possibly moved out. So those are some of the immigration specifics that Trump offered today that he hasn't before. In the main, much of what we heard about his criticism of Obama, President Obama and Hillary Clinton is the same, and much of his prescriptions to dealing with counterterrorism are largely what we've heard on the campaign trail before. This was just packaged differently and in one place. Vlad?
Major, listening to Donald Trump deliver this speech, I was struck by his use of the word extreme several times. He talked about extreme vetting. He talked about extreme in dealing with terror suspects, and I didn't hear you quite as well, Major, but did you address the fact that he said he would look at the children of immigrants as well? And you just pointed out that would have a lot of that would have to do with ideological thinking. So I don't know how you go about implementing that. I'm a child of immigrants, as are many, many Americans.
He did say he would keep Guantanamo Bay open, that all enemy combatants would be tried in military commissions, presumably there in Guantanamo. And he also said drone strikes will remain an important part of the projection of U.S. military strength in the prosecution of the war against terrorism. But he said he would re-emphasize capturing people, bringing them to Guantanamo, and administering any variety of interrogation techniques to learn as much as can be learned from them about future terror plots or existing terror networks. So Trump is sort of going back to Bush administration policy on that. He didn't say anything about these alleged and confirmed black sites during the earliest years after 9/11, in which countries allowed the United States to operate interrogation sites completely off the books. Trump didn't make any reference to that, but he did say Guantanamo Bay would be open. It would be an intense place for interrogation to occur, and that any criticism of Guantanamo Bay and its relationship to inciting or encouraging terrorist attacks against the United States should not be believed. That's now a disagreement not only with the current president, Barack Obama, but with President George W. Bush, who also said Guantanamo Bay should be closed, and it probably was more harmful than helpful to U.S. interests in the war on terrorism.
All right, Major Garrett there in Youngstown, Ohio, reporting for us. Major, thank you as always.